And even though I'm speaking to a group, let's say yesterday there's 5,000 people there. There's people in there, it's a business meeting, but there's people struggling with personal issues. So they'll send a note in, hey, this is at the extreme, but I've gotten emails, I'm sure you have as well, that's like, I was going to end it. I was going to end my life today, but then there's something that you said that just said, okay, one more day, let me keep it going.
It's one small step for man. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We choose to go to the moon, not because they are easy, but because they are
I
hard.
have a dream.
You can't handle the truth.
7,
6,
5,
4, 3,
2,
1.
Super
you.
Welcome back to the Super You Podcast. It's the podcast designed to unlock and unleash your inner superpower. I'm Jake with Equalman Studios. Here's this week's quote. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. For today's show, we're reposting an episode from the Mic Drop podcast, where Equalman sat down with host Josh Linker. Erik discusses how to bring focus to our work, prioritizing the big versus the busy, how to balance a massive speaking business with health and family, cutting through the noise and standing out, and how keynote speakers can adapt to international audiences. Josh Linker is the #1 most booked innovation keynote speaker on the planet. He founded, built, and sold 5 companies for a combined exit value of over $200 million. He's a New York Times bestselling author of 3 books in 14 languages, focused on innovation, leadership, startup thinking, reinvention, and leading transformation. Once again, thank you for joining us today on the Super You Podcast. Enjoy this conversation between Erik Equalman and Josh Linker.
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast for professional speakers. We cover the ins and outs of the business, helping you deliver more impact on bigger stages at higher fees. You'll gain an inside edge through intimate conversations with the world's most successful keynote speakers. I'm your host, Josh Linker. Get ready for some inspiring mic drop moments together. Today's show is sponsored by Impact 11, formerly known as 3 Ring Circus, the best and most diverse and inclusive community built for training and developing professional speakers. They're not just elevating an industry we know and love, they work with hundreds of speakers to launch and scale their speaking businesses, earning tens of millions in speaking fees, landing bureau representation, securing book deals, and rising to the top of the field. To learn more and schedule a free intro call, visit impact11.com. That's impacteleven.com. What do you call a 6'5" tall, bright green glasses wearing digital leadership expert with a perpetual Kool-Aid smile? My guest today is the one and only Erik Equalman. Erik has been named the #2 most likable author on the planet, coming in just behind J.K. Rowling. In addition to penning not only 1 but 5 #1 bestsellers, he's been named a top 50 digital influencer by Forbes magazine. Erik has delivered keynotes in 55 countries and reached over 50 million people with his compelling and inspiring messages. And according to him, most importantly, I'm still trying to live up to the world's greatest dad coffee mug I received from my wife and 2 daughters. In today's conversation with Erik, we cover how to bring focus to our work, prioritizing the crucial and shunning the nagging distractions. How Erik balances a massive speaking business with his health and family. Approaches to creating something distinctive, in Erik's case, his alien green glasses, to cut through the noise and stand out. What we keynote speakers can learn from the #1 digital leadership expert. And tactically, how should we adapt to international audiences to drive maximum impact? I just know you're going to love my conversation with this jolly green glasses giant. Erik Equalman, welcome to Mic Drop.
No, it's awesome to be here. Thanks, Josh.
I've been so looking forward to our conversation. I always look forward to our conversations. You've always been a dear friend and a source of inspiration to me. I'd love to have us go back. I was curious because I don't think you and I have ever talked about it. How did you get into the speaking business in the first place? Take us back to those early days.
I think like a lot of people that are listening to this, I fell into it backwards. And so I grew up in Detroit, and I'll give you the short version. I was on the tech side of business. So I worked at Yahoo back when they were kind of the TikTok or the Facebook of the day. And then I was head of marketing at Travel Zoo. And so we started to test a little bit with MySpace. And then I saw, whoa, this is going to really change the way the world functions. And so I wrote a book called Socialnomics, telling people that this isn't just teenage stuff. This is actually for business, for governments. It's hard to imagine now, but at the time, people thought social media was just like this kid's toy. And so Socialnomics was just, hey, this is how the world's going to change by social media. And then they had me speak. The publisher had me speak at an event. And then historically, I have a tendency to mumble in interpersonal communication skills throughout my life. So I had taken Toastmasters when I was in grad school, just from an interpersonal communication standpoint. And then at Travel Zoo, because the founder's German, I was kind of thrown in the fire to deal with the press and also with all the financial institutions when we go on these road shows. So I became kind of a voice of Travel Zoo. So it's kind of a baptism by fire. So one of my classmates said, if there's anyone from our class that would become a public speaker, I would have picked you dead last, which actually is kind of a compliment. And so I would have never thought I'd be in this vocation. But I gave that speech at that book event. It's called Book Expo. It's the largest book event where they launch books. And so they gave me a slot, my publisher at the time. And then someone in the audience said, I don't know what you do for a living, but you should speak for a living. And then it took me 4 years to really go all in. But that's kind of how I fell into it backwards. I had no idea that this whole world existed.
And once you started learning about the world, what was going through your mind? How did you decide? Because you obviously are very talented in a number of fields. You could have pursued a lot of things. What drew you into the world of professional speaking and sort of captured your heart and mind?
I just love the impact of the audience, just to be able to get that real-time impact that, oh, you're making a difference, and that people couldn't see at the time what I could see. So I go, well, this would be kind of selfish if I didn't get this word out there. That's the initial start of it. And then I just fell into love with it because just to be able to see the impact that you could have on individuals. And you're right, it wasn't an easy switch because for 4 years, I basically would take vacation days to go speak. So I was still running this global operation. And eventually I was fortunate enough just to talk with my boss that owned the company and said, hey, I can't manage a team anymore. I'd love to stay on as kind of advisor. We don't need to get into that, but that's really how I fell in love with the world of speaking.
And so when you started, like all of us, I'm sure, you weren't on the world's biggest stages. You and I were just chatting earlier, and you were mentioning that yesterday you did an event in Vegas, and there were two keynote speakers, you and Magic Johnson. And that's probably not how it was on day one. You were probably, like most of us, speaking at pancake breakfasts and such. Tell us about those early days. What was that like? How did you sort of refine your craft and then ultimately launch to where you are now?
No, you're exactly right. I always tell people, speak for free. And we all start speaking for free. And I got so excited when someone would pay for my flight into Atlanta because my brother lived there. I'm like, oh man, this is great. They're going to pay me just to go and speak, which I like to do. And then all of a sudden you start to figure out how this whole thing works. And that's why it's been amazing the work that you've done because it didn't exist when I was there. And so Josh, you and your team at Impact 11, it's been amazing just to kind of put it more into business context so that people that are new, like I had to figure it out myself. And so what you've been able to develop is fantastic. Obviously, this podcast is amazing for that as well. But yeah, I bounced around. Most of those events starting off were free. And then eventually it grew from there. Just someone sat down and goes, you should ask this amount. And they gave me this amount of money. I go, are you kidding me? And they go, yeah, just ask. They'll probably say yes. And I couldn't believe it. I felt so nervous just asking for that amount of money at the beginning. And then away we went.
So now here we are today. You've been named the #1 digital leadership speaker. You've been named the second most likable author only to J.K. Rowling. Amazing. And we look at your accomplishments now and it almost seems so impossible for many of those that are just getting started. Maybe share with us some of the struggles that you had along the way and how did the Erik Equalman that we know today become the Erik Equalman that we know today?
For the listeners out there, I mean, I mentioned it, and so you'll even hear it in this interview. I have a tendency to mumble. And so that's like one of the biggest challenges. Also, I'm an introvert extrovert. I'm kind of a combination. When I'm on stage, I love to kind of get into it. But even that's been a learned process to really let go on stage and to divulge some of your personal life, to make it personal so that the audience trusts you and leans in a little bit more. So that's been a learned process over the last 12 years from that standpoint, just to make it as personal as possible as you can, as much as you're willing to do on stage, and kind of be vulnerable on stage. So historically, that has not my DNA. So that was the biggest challenge. Like, I'm a business person. I'm going to speak about business. You just want the brass facts. And then over time, I mean, I was like a tech guy, so that was my background. And then over time, I realized, wait, these people want to be motivated. They want the stories. They want to kind of be edutained rather than just educated. And so that was the biggest shift. And then once you realize that really propels you. That really takes you to the next level. But for anyone starting out there, I always say, if you want to speak, speak. You know, they sit there and they want to get all this armor on before they go in. I go, you got to get out there and start testing what works, not only content-wise, but also delivery-wise, and also, do you like this? And what do you love about it? And try to figure out what's going to be, where you're going to carve something out for yourself.
Such great advice. And, just to emphasize, I appreciate you sharing that. Again, when we see people at your level of success, it feels unattainable. But as you point out, you were voted last likely to be a public speaker. You mumbled. It wasn't your thing. You have some introvert tendencies. So you weren't born the rock star that you are today. You had to develop those skills. And that actually is really encouraging, because it's a learned skill. It's something that we can all learn to develop and cultivate. You said something, though, I want to drill on. You said something about, find out what you really love about speaking. What is it that you really love about speaking? What fuels you today? What have you fallen in love with about the craft of this oddball profession?
I love when just getting an email, or maybe it's a text from an audience member that says, you changed my life. Like, I switched vocations because of you. You gave this speech, you showed this video when you're on stage, and at that moment, I know I wanted to do this. And I switched vocations, and it really changed my life. Or, I mean, it can get kind of dark, too, if you get in front of enough people. There's a lot of mental illness out there. And even though I'm speaking to a group, let's say yesterday there's 5,000 people there. There's people in there, it's a business meeting, but there's people struggling with personal issues. So they'll send a note in, hey, this is at the extreme, but I've gotten emails, I'm sure you have as well, that's like, I was going to end it. I was going to end my life today, but then there's something that you said that just said, okay, one more day, let me keep it going. And I'm definitely not trained in that area to handle those type of situations, but to get those type of emails and those communications, that's what I really love about it, is how can you impact someone's life? How can you change just one person? Even if it's just one person throughout your career, that's a successful career if you just changed, positively impacted one person.
What a beautiful sentiment. And I agree. I mean, to a degree, as speakers, we're in the aha business. We help people make new connections, form new opinions, see the world differently. And it can really have a wonderful and positive impact. For me, I love learning. I love the stagecraft. I love teaching. I love sharing. I love storytelling. And I know you love many of those things too. We talked about what you love about it. Maybe hate is a strong word, but what don't you like about the speaking business?
Well, I think for yourself and also a lot of the listeners, it's really the travel. And so it's trying to figure out, it's really the time and the complications we all are faced with travel. And so trying to figure out how to deal with it. And so for me, I've got 2 young kids at home. I've got 2 young daughters. They're growing up quickly. And so I want to make sure I didn't miss that time. And so trying to figure out what works well with the family. What can you put in place so that it works for you? And then so for us, it's my wife fortunately loves to travel. So during the summer, we take the kids. So we've been, because of the speaking career, we've been to Vietnam, we've been to Singapore, we've been to Spain, France, Portugal, on down the list. So it's been invaluable. Once they're in school, then it's something that I've learned to figure out, how do I physically and mentally handle travel. And so I've been able to figure out systems so that I can sometimes speak in 3 different cities in 2 countries in 2 days. Now, over time, as you get older, it's a little harder, but that's been something we've put in place. And also we track it to make sure I'm not away from the kids too often. So then that adjusts our business. So I live in Austin. We try to get a lot of events that are Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and more people are coming to Austin. And so that doesn't count as a day away because I'm at home, I speak, and then I'm at home that same evening. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, is just trying to do that balance with the family and the travel.
Double clicking on that, are there any hacks or systems that you talked about the systems? What are some of them that the speakers listening can learn from on how they can balance work and family in their own situation?
First, when you're signing a contract, make sure what time is that event. So I know that sounds pretty intuitive, but literally you might have someone that helps you sign your contracts, or it's a bureau that's signing them, and then they're indifferent at what time it is. So they'll just kind of put the contract together. So you want to make sure, I actually review every contract, and specifically the first thing I look for is what time am I speaking? And so over time, what works best for me is that morning kickoff. A couple reasons, because I know there's not other speakers in front of me. So someone might have said something I already said. And if I wasn't in the event, I'm not aware of that. Everyone else in the room is, but I am not. So being the first speaker of the event in the morning to help kick things off, and I'm a morning person, so that also helps, is that there's a couple reasons you want to do that. One, your content's fresh. You don't know if someone already said something that you did. And then also, it allows me to get fly back out in the morning. So I fly in the night before. That gives me some safety. And then I speak first thing in the morning and try to get out. That doesn't always work out. Sometimes they say, no, it's a night event. You have to be here for night. But just being more intentional, that's a system of what time you're speaking. From a physical standpoint, as hard as it is to do, I just made a rule. I don't drink the night before I speak. And most of the time when we're at these events, they have a cocktail reception. So they're expecting you to drink, or if you're in South America, my wife's from Colombia, different culture. So we always say Erik can be great at night or great in the morning, but he can't be both. So what do you want him to be? Do you want him to be at this cocktail reception till 11 at night? Or do you really want him to rock the stage at 8 a.m.?
That's such a great way to frame it. And I'm sure, how could a client choose the wrong thing there? It's amazing. And, one of the things I admire about you is your thoughtfulness and your intentionality. Your most recent book, The Focus Project, Pursuing Less in Order to Achieve More. How does that weave into this intentionality? Maybe you can give us a little hint of what the book is about, and perhaps what we as speakers can learn from your body of work.
So the book is called The Project because all of us, I was realizing my hair's on fire at the end of every day. And so this isn't sustainable. And ironically enough, I run the organization. So if I don't feel like I'm in control, then I bet other people out there in the world feel like their hair's on fire and they're not in control. So I started talking to school principals. I started talking to CEOs, to senators, and everyone was in the same boat. They had time famine. They just felt like they were running 1,000,000 miles an hour on a treadmill. So that's why I did the Focus Project, to figure out this isn't a new problem, right? It goes back thousands of years. How do I focus on the big versus the busy? So I started to test old concepts, new concepts, just to figure out what might work and what might not work. And so it's been revolutionary for me, and I'm learning every day. So I'm just trying to get 1% better when it comes to that focus. But it's been revolutionary for me when it comes to what I do for a living. Part of it, you'll laugh at this, as a speaker, and this is funny because it happens to a lot of people we interviewed, very successful people, is that you start getting pulled in a million directions. So then all of a sudden, literally for the week, I might put 0 minutes, except for when I'm on stage, into the speaking business. So I'm not being intentional, as you mentioned, being intentional with the business. And so a couple times a year, we always pause. In our small team here, we go, let's get back to the biggest part of the business, which is me speaking on stage. Other than getting pulled, you can get pulled in many directions. Let's run this website. We're running this thing that we do over here, or we're doing this board game. So there's a lot of things that pull you in different directions. So that's a key learning from the Focus Project itself for me, is how do I be intentional with every minute?
Becoming a keynote speaker is an amazing profession. The top performers earn millions in annual income while driving massive impact on audiences around the world. But the quest to speaking glory can be a slow route with many obstacles that can knock even the best speakers out of the game. If you're serious about growing your speaking business, the seasoned pros at Impact 11 can help. From optimizing your marketing and business efforts, to crafting your ideal positioning, to perfecting your expertise and stage skills, Impact 11 is the only speaker training and development program run by current high-level speakers at the top of their field. That's why the major bureaus like Washington Speakers Bureau, Premier Speakers, Speak Inc., Executive Speakers, Harry Walker Agency, Kepler, Gotham Artists, and GDA all endorse and participate in Impact 11. From interactive boot camps to one-on-one coaching, if you're looking to take your speaking career to the next level, they'll help you make a bigger impact faster. For a free 30-minute consultation, visit impact11.com/mic drop. So good. Maybe you could share a little bit more, like if we dug into the book, what are some of the other key findings or insights or revelations that you share in the book that, again, we could take as speakers and apply to our own speaking practice?
Yeah, first and foremost, just think about, and this is covered in a lot of different periodicals over thousands of years, what's the one thing that makes everything else either easier or unnecessary? And always go back to that first principle. What's the one thing that makes everything else either easier or unnecessary? And your huge list, because you've got 60 things on that to-do list, if I give you 48 hours, you're not getting them done. So it's not a time issue. It really isn't. It's an energy management issue. So number one is, what's the one thing you need to focus on? And try to attack that during your power hour. So try to figure out, and this is a simple way to do it, but all you listeners out there, kind of close your eyes. Think of a Saturday. It's a Saturday morning. And no one's getting you up. There's no alarms. There's no kid jumping on your head. I know it sounds like a fantasy, but literally Saturday morning, if nothing was going to wake you up, when would you naturally wake up? When would you naturally get out of bed? And so if you get up before 7, you're a robin. You're an early bird, so you're a robin. Most of us are eagles. If you got up between 7 and 10, you're an eagle. And then if you got up after 10, you're a night owl. So the key is, you want to attack your power hour. So basically, after a half hour, if you've kind of you're awake, after a half hour, you do your stuff in the morning. That hour after that first half hour, you naturally wake up. You need to attack that one thing that'll make everything else either easy or unnecessary before your brain gets drained. Because it's like an iPhone. Over the course of the day, that battery drains. And so figure out if you're a robin, eagle, or an owl, and attack that power hour as much as you can. Some days you can't do it, but most days just focus on that one thing that really is going to take your speaking business to the next level.
Such great wisdom. It's often been said that focus is a lot of what you say no to, not what you say yes to. What are some of the things that you say no to? I mean, you're right. I'm sure you're inundated with people like me. Hey, be on my podcast. Like what are the things that, how do you think about what do I say no to? Because honestly, for me, it's hard. I like to say yes to everything, as do many people. And then what you do is you become an unfocused, tangled mess of spaghetti. How do you say no? What guidepost do you use to reject something rather than accept it?
Yeah, a good guidepost is if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So think if it's not a hell yes, oh, hell yes, I want to do that, then it should be a hell no. Hell yes could be, hey, do you want 2 tickets to this jazz concert? Hell yes. You want 2 tickets to the Super Bowl that the Lions are in 2040? Hell yes. But if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, because Josh, as you mentioned, most of us are people pleasers, and that does us well most of the time. But you got to also remember, if you say yes, this is, because historically I'd say yes to everything. And so once I did this project, I realized, wait, I'm saying yes to everyone. That means I'm really saying no to everyone, meaning I'm not able to put my full self in there, so everyone loses. And so it's really about the art of saying no and saying it quickly and strongly. That's not easy to do. Just a quick story from the book is I volunteer my time at church with my girls. Now this is because I travel so much, I want to make sure I spend time. So we're going to go to church, so why not volunteer? So I'm with the girls for another hour. But invariably, they don't have enough volunteers for the boys at the age. The boys are a little harder to handle. No one really wants to volunteer for the boys. And so historically what would happen is they go, hey, Erik, I know you volunteer for the girls, but can you handle the boys today? And I'd go, sure. Because it's church. You're like, what kind of volunteer am I? I'm just like on my own terms. But then eventually I said, I did sign up for the girls because I travel a lot. I want to spend. So I write this email. And I'm like, that good. I said, no, I'm done. And then they come back and say, actually, can you really work with the boys? Because I know you want to work with the girls, but we really don't have enough for the boys. I'm like, I got to stick to my guns. So I copy and paste the same email back. And then so they switched this other lady. And this isn't always going to be rainbows and unicorns, but I got to spend time with my girls. But the lady that had switched to handle the boys, she found out she likes dealing with the boys better. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but I was so proud of myself in that moment, and it wouldn't have happened without writing the book. If I wasn't in the process of writing the book, I would have succumbed and just said, I'll do it, and then everyone, it would have been a lose-lose. In this situation, it worked out to be a win-win.
Love that. Love that. So I want to switch a little bit because we could talk about your writing. I mean, I'm fascinated. I've read your books and I'm I'm kind of a super fan of yours. But I want to switch to the speaking business. One thing when we think Erik Equalman, and I say we meaning the entire world, we think of bright green glasses. This is your signature look. You're wearing them now. I know this is an audio recording, but I'm looking at your beautiful, shiny, cool, certain color green glasses. And this is not an accident. Back to being intentional. Tell us the story of how you came up with this, how you are known for it, what green glasses has meant, because I think so many of us speakers are trying to find something to cut through and to be distinctive. And you've done that in a really special way. It's a visual cue that's instantly recognizable around the world. Help us understand the myth and the legend of the green glasses.
No, I mean, and I'll tell the story. I'll try to keep it as tight as possible, but you're right. A lot of things happen organically. And then from there, then you have to be intentional with it. And it doesn't have to be something physical. Like Brene Brown, her superpower is when she came on stage at TED and was very vulnerable, said she had a psychiatrist. She's like, a psychiatrist? This is well ahead at the time. Now it's kind of accepted, partly because of her work, that, hey, some people are wrestling with mental issues. And so it doesn't have to be a physical thing that you embrace around your personal brand, but you have to be intentional. Definitely have to be intentional. So my name's Erik Equalman. So they hand out email addresses. It's first initial, last name. So it's Equalman. And I didn't like it. For 15 years, I kind of resisted it. Partly because I'm in Detroit, I'm working at Cadillac. They're like an intern. Hey, we need some coffee. Well, Equalman, you got a superhero name. You must be fast. Why don't you go get the coffee? And so I resisted it, didn't really like it. And then in a moment in time, I realized I'd always thought this was happening to me rather than for me. And so you want to look for those opportunities where you're thinking, I can't believe this is happening to me. I'm not getting speaking deals. But then you look back and go, something might be happening for you. And that's exactly what happened for me. So I think my book, Digital Leader, was doing well. So we did an interview for a magazine. They wanted to take a photo for the cover. And they said, hey, your unique email moniker, do you mind, for the cover, we want to have some fun. Do you mind wearing some Clark Kent, like Superman glasses? I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And they go, well, it's our St. Patty's Day issue. Do you mind if they're green? I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Let's do it. We'll have some fun. They bring them out. I'm like, whoa, those are bright, like alien green. But we take the photo, and then a couple weeks later, I fly to Kenya to give a talk. And this is the first time I've been to Kenya at this point. So I wanted to figure out what Kenya is all about the night before, which is another tip for speakers. You really need to know where you're speaking and who you're speaking to. So do as much recon as you can the night before when you're on the ground. So I go to a rescue shelter to adopt a baby cheetah. And not to take home, my wife would kill me, but just to support the local area. And on the ride over, the lady that I'm with, she says, hey, you know, Usain Bolt, the Olympic sprinter, was here 2 days ago. He adopted from the same litter you're going to adopt from. And we filmed him. We'd love to film you, marry that footage together to raise more money for the shelter. And I go, yeah, it sounds great. It's a great idea. You should do that. And then she pauses and looks at me and goes, and I'm not wearing green glasses. She goes, but when we're filming, we want to make sure you're wearing your green glasses. And I look back at her and go, I don't walk around the world wearing these green glasses. I look like a fool. That was just for that magazine. And then she pauses and looks at me, and the look of disappointment was like, no, everyone in Kenya, that's what they think you look like. That's the expectation that we're going to have tomorrow. So I kind of fell into it by accident, but it was that moment that I realized, wait, this isn't happening to me. It's happening for me. It's time to step into that discomfort and really own Equalman. And the only way that I could own it, because when wearing bright green glasses, people are going to look at you. And again, when I'm off the stage, I kind of want to just kind of be introverted, kind of do my thing. But if I can help one person just from the green glasses, then it's worth me wearing them. And we don't have time to go into different stories that have happened since then because of the green glasses, being able to help people or even getting booked for business because of the glasses, because some person will come up to me and start a random conversation. They happen to have an event coming up. And so over time, it's just kind of taking ownership of it. And we've had fun with it. Now, we've had the last several years ago, they started going, hey, can we get some of those glasses? We're like, yeah, you can order them over here. And they go, no, we'd really like you to produce them and handle it for us. And so now we're in the business of making these glasses. They'll put them on everyone's chair at events. And so it's been a wild ride. It's crazy to think about. I would have expected this, that we're in the business of selling these green glasses. But again, it all stems from, can I help one person with these glasses? And people are having fun with it now. So we kind of step into it. At the beginning, we lost some of business because of it, because at the time, most speakers are wearing suits. They're like, we're just a business meeting. We can't have a guy with green glasses on there. The world's kind of shifted. And so we're willing to lose that business to gain other business. And then in time, when the world shifted, it's